Let's talk about money for a minute. Over the summer, during the coronavirus pandemic, the average FICO score in this country has actually risen. These are average consumers, not just people applying for home loans. Most households use their stimulus check to pay down debt and to save. 35% of those receiving stimulus used it to pay down debt or to retire debt. 36% saved the money. You've probably seen some news stories about deposits rising across the country. Lots of people surprisingly saving money, and only 29% actually spent the money. A lot of people, 2 out of 3 almost, used it to pay down debt or save, thereby improving their financial situation, raising their FICO score, and giving them a better situation going forward. And I don't think this is something that's being talked about in general. The media isn't going to report on this because it's good news, and good news doesn't sell headlines. The other thing that's very interesting about the world that we live in right now relative to business is the number of business applications across the U.S. It has skyrocketed this year, and that's really a tribute to innovation across the country as people have seen various needs through this pandemic. You know, they've said, I can shift my business, I can create a business, I can do something different to be able to meet the needs of consumers in today's market. And there's no doubt there have been a lot of businesses that have been impacted in a negative way going through the pandemic. But there's been so much response of people saying, I'm going to start a business. I'm going to do something that's going to serve a need in this country. And honestly, it's no different than the housing crash back in 2008. A lot of great companies that are around today were started then in that innovation period that was birthed during the downturn of the Great Recession. So I think that there's positive news relative to businesses and people starting businesses to innovate and meet a need through this health crisis that's caused an economic crisis across the country in the year that we now commonly know as 2020. This week happens to be Entrepreneur Week, so if you're one of these small businesses, good for you, congratulations, and thank you. Next, we're going to look at this U.S. map. As we look across the country at consumer spending, we know in a large majority of states that consumer spending is very near to where it was at the first of the year. And as we go back to January 1st, we look at where consumer spending is at. And as you can see, no matter what state you're in, where you're at relative to consumer spending. And the majority, this mustardy brown orange color, these states are within 10% of where we were January 1st. So that is very, very good news. The country as a whole is within 3.7% of where we were on January 1st, pre-pandemic. Weekly filings for unemployment. The weekly claims across this country since this started in late March are down. Most recently, about 750,000 claiming unemployment at the end of October. But we've been in this area for the last couple of months, around 800,000 or 900,000 people filing for unemployment each week, and we want to see that continue to come down. We're kind of hovering in that area. Now, the interesting thing about this is that as people continue to apply for unemployment, people are getting their jobs back and coming off of unemployment. And I know as states shut down over Thanksgiving to stop this rising spread, that will cause these maybe to rise a little bit, but we think it's temporary. Looking at our next slide now, this is a look at those currently receiving unemployment insurance. So if you go back to May, the height of this, we saw almost 25 million people receiving unemployment insurance. At the most recent count, about 7.3 million. And while we've hovered in that 800,000 or 900,000 people applying in that range each week, there you can see that we've seen a decrease in those receiving unemployment insurance. Most recently at about 500,000 of those coming off, for a total number of about 7.3 million receiving unemployment insurance. Now, I think that is sobering news. I'm not suggesting that 7.3 million people on unemployment is a good thing, but it certainly is not 25 million. And we want to see that continue to come down as the vaccine rolls out and people get back to work more confidently. And in our next video, we're going to be talking about forbearances and foreclosures.